Welcome back to LOP Radio. This is Entropy. I have Tony with me. He is from www.themicroeffect.com. He also has a YouTube channel at www.youtube.com/herb+speedworks. He hosts a radio show called The Remedy, which can be heard on the internet every Saturday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on themicroeffect.com. He's an herbalist familiar with a lot of different topics, including nutrition, government, and corporate interference of what we consume and its effects on our lives. Welcome to the program, Tony. How are you?
Fine. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for being here. I was browsing over your YouTube channel, and you have so many different subjects that you hit on, and you show people how to make their own remedies to problems they may be suffering through, and a lot of great advice on nutrition. Can I ask you, what is wrong with the food that we consume now?
What's wrong with it? The food supply today in the United States and Canada has been under Codex Alimentarius compliance. So that means that all the foods that you're eating today are supposed to be irradiated. They're being genetically engineered and genetically altered. So sometimes you're seeing a lot of GMO and genetically engineered labeling on the products, saying non-GMO, non-GE. What that's really saying to you is they've added a non-genetic product to a product that already has genetic components to it. The health food industry today is not what it used to be. They are controlled by drug conglomerates, pharmaceutical companies control a lot of health food stuff. When you look at even your vitamins today, they've been compromised with polymers, metals, coloring agents, soy, and a whole host of things in them that can make them actually less effective, they don't work. They don't work like they used to, or they don't work at all. So what we're having to face today is poor farming practices. When you look at the organic definitions that are out there today, they're not designed for food safety, but rather food farming practices. The USDA has been since 1907 and undermining the food safety of the United States. When you see a little green organic sticker with the USDA, you can bet that what you're seeing is a hijacked food.
I see. And when you buy something organic and you say that it's been hijacked, it's already been modified, is that an intentional modification, or is that the result of the practices with the farming and the materials that farmers are using?
It's not always the farmer. There are a lot of good intended farmers out there, and they're trying their best to grow the best they can. But the thing is, I mean, you got chemtrails coming down on the food crop. You got genetically modified pollen spreading over the fields, which again doesn't take much to cross-pollinate the fields. A lot of this is being done not necessarily by the farmers. Some farmers are in cahoots with the big corporate genetic companies out there like Cargill, ADM, Syngenta, Symbus, Dow, Nestle's, DuPont, Monsanto, to name a few. So again, BASF, some of them aren't direct cahoots with them, and it's more or less a means to develop biological agents that can cause a disruption in your digestive system and your endocrine system. If I shut those two things down, then you basically are going into what they call hyper-accelerated aging, where you start to break down extremely fast.
So this is intentional.
Oh, there's no doubt.
And you mentioned chemtrails. Why do you believe that chemtrails are real?
Why do I what now?
Why do you believe that chemtrails are real? It's a controversial topic on the forum.
It's only controversial because of disinformants on the internet that are going out there to trying to create a false sense of security or comfort for people who are asleep in their little world. If you look at the space agency document that was done in 2001 by the United States government, a government documented a piece of paper, indicates that the second form of space weaponization are chemtrails. Anybody can look up in the sky and see a line in the sky. If it doesn't dissipate within moments, which that would be a condensation trail if it evaporates very quickly. When you see lines in the sky and X is forming and swirls, maintain and are stationary in the air, that's something else altogether. And when you start seeing them being spread out through a form of microwave technology where they appear to be spread out like a vapor. That's called aerosoling. That's so that when they fall down in 23 hours, they hit a broader area of the population where they're coming down. Again, this is a form of weaponization in space.
Do you believe that they are spraying these aerosols to experiment on the population, or is it part of a more sinister plan?
Well, there's the Georgia Guidestones. In there, they're indicating they want to reduce the population of the planet down to 500 million from 7 billion. Those who are compromised genetically, those who are compromised as a result of poor health, those who are compromised because of aging. This will, again, like I say, get into what I call hyper aging or hyper acceleration of your aging, because it's causing your immune system to go into overdrive trying to flush these materials out. There are people who are not showing any indication or signs of this thing. Doesn't mean they're not being affected. Anybody who lives on the planet that's breathing in the chemtrail atmosphere or eating even some of the crop that has nanoparticles being sprayed on them have chemtrail contamination inside of them. Once it reaches a certain saturation point, that's when you start seeing the geometrical patterns, the outbreaks, the rashes, the itchy skin, the creepy crawly biting effect goes on inside a person.
And would what's known as Morgellons disease be a symptom of this practice?
For sure. For sure.
Okay. And the document you referred to earlier, you sent me a copy of it before we went on the air. And it's known as the Space Preservation Act of 2001, passed in the 107th Congress. And the bill number is HR 2977. I'm looking over it now. And it states under Section 7 definitions in this act, which I will post in the thread as the show progresses. Under B, such terms include exotic weapon systems such as electronic, psychotronic, or information weapons. Information weapons, that would be what we're using to communicate with?
That, your cell phones, your internet. I was listening to Dowden or whatever his name is. He's talking about there's a program that they've got right now where you can read everybody's emails. They can spy on any government. They can go almost anywhere. They were spying on the German government for a while. The Chancellor of Germany. These things set out what they call pulses or frequencies. Your smart meters pulse 9,600 times more than your cell phone. This is a form of, again, information weapons, because this is sending information from your home directly to the electrical company. And again, when they tell you to go out there and do some grounding, go out there barefooted, that would be the dumbest thing to do these days, because what happens is in the United States and Canada, the power gets directed into the home through the power lines, and then it's returned underground back to the electrical company. So when you're out there walking barefoot, you're actually charging your system up with electrical energy and negative electrical energy. So one of the ways to discharge yourself if you're feeling this going on is step on a piece of aluminum, both feet barefoot, and that'll discharge you, just sort of like a capacitor releasing a high energy level or energy pulse coming out of your system.
And right under information weapons, it lists specifically what says chemtrails.
Yeah.
Do we know what's in chemtrails?
Yes, we do. There are over 43 components in chemtrails, 4 types of radioactive material. You've got metals, you've got nanoparticles, you've got nano silver, nano gold, nano aluminum, cadmium, lead, barium, silica. You've even got pathological materials in these chemtrails. You've got thorium, uranium, plutonium. What's the other one? There's always one I always keep forgetting. So a lot of this radioactive material that people are seeing, where guys are putting Geiger counters on the ground and getting radioactive material, that's your chemtrail fallout. So again, this is all designed to release what's called nanopolymer materials in your system. They're a biofilm that replicate and reproduce inside of you. Again, your food supplies have also been sprayed with nano silver. Even after 4 washings, you cannot get this stuff out. nanoparticles bind and get lodged in brain, lung, heart, and all kinds of tissues. You cannot flush this out that easy. You can pull it out, but it takes a great deal of work to pull it out of your system. So again, because you're inundated with these nanoparticles.
As a herbalist, is there anything that can help to minimize the effects of this?
The thing you need to do at this point, when you're seeing and being aware of this, is you need to be able to reduce the load you're accumulating. So there's four things. There's four you must have. In my personal observations with dealing with more gallons, you need phosphorus, you need sulfur, you need salt, and you need iodine. You need to bathe in the salts. There's usually 5 salts I tell people to use. You need to use iodine to regenerate your glands and help build your immune system, as well as chelate some of these materials that you're putting in the system. You need phosphorus, again, to help in the breaking down the capacity of these things to self-replicate. And you need the sulfur to chelate this stuff out of the system. So there's on one of my web pages, I'd have to dig it up for you. I have a whole protocol there where you can go and download the protocol that we give people here.
Okay. If once you find that, just send me a note and we'll insert it into the thread where we're discussing this program. The document goes on to list ultrasonic weapons as well as high altitude, ultra low frequency weapon systems. Are those also something that's affecting people's health?
So people are hearing high pitching and high shrilling activity, right? This high pitching activity, they're attributing it to something called tinnitus. I don't believe tinnitus ever really existed. I think it was, again, a means to cover up the fact that people were actually able to attenuate to the frequencies that they were being exposed to. So as a result, they think they when they went to the doctor, they were told you have tinnitus. But in reality, they were actually able to hear the attack that was going on the system, on their bodies. So again, it's another one of these a smoke and mirror effect. So again, I don't believe for a minute that this I mean, the condition may exist, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist. What I'm saying is that a lot of people that they're prognosing with this condition may not actually have this.
I see. Okay, and another thing the document mentions are strategic theater, tactical, or extraterrestrial weapons.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about what the term extraterrestrial weapons is referring to?
That I'm not sure of. I mean, obviously, it would be some sort of weaponry that they may have either accumulated from some takeover of some kind of alien technology that they may have done or may have reversed engineered. There was a scenario that happened, I believe, in 1991. It was called the City of Lights. Some kind of craft flew over Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, and literally shut the power down of the whole city.
I remember that, yes.
Okay, so I mean, when I was down there, somebody showed it to me, and this thing was the length of 3 football fields. So again, when we're looking at what that means, it could have been something that they might have picked up and might have reverse engineered and developed.
Okay, so but we're not really sure.
No.
I do remember the Phoenix Lights incident, and something that stuck out in my mind about that was that every news network covered that, but they did not cover it immediately. They covered it they all covered it on the same day, but it was about 2 to 3 months after the event happened. And that has always kind of confused me a little bit on how all the news networks reported it the same day, but they waited, so long to cover it. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, they're not going to tell you everything, and I mean, you can't flat out say that it didn't happen when something like that flies over a city and shuts down the power grid. Now, whether it was something out of Area 51, whether it was something that was reverse engineered, whether it was actually an ET, that we really don't know for sure, but we do know it did happen. So again, you can go online and find this, and you can see this thing as it flies by. It literally shuts down the whole power grid, and then as it passes, the power all comes back on again. So again, it's what it is. When we're talking and speculating why they do some of the things, the majority of the time when they do things is to begin to cover up something. They don't, they're trying to, again, create a smoke and mirror effect.
Another thing this document discusses in Section 7 is subsection C. It says the term exotic weapon systems include weapons designed to damage space or natural ecosystems, such as the ionosphere, upper atmosphere, or climate, weather, and tectonic systems,
Yep.
with the purpose of inducing damage or destruction upon a targeted population or region.
That would be your HAARP.
HAARP?
That would be your HAARP. That would be your HAARP technology.
The high altitude antenna.
Yep. Yeah, we've got 7 of them across Canada. You had the one up in Alaska. Norway built a brand new one about a year ago, and that's the ones we know. Russia has them, China has them, so it's not like it's a big secret anymore. A lot of the weather that we're feeling and being induced in the United States and Canada right now is a result of this technology being turned on. So we're no longer in Kansas anymore, and this is. I mean, I was down in Arizona about 8 or 9 years ago. I was with a friend, and we came out of we were up near the college town there. What the heck was it called? Anyway, they had a hydroponic place there, so we went in there to check out the stuff. We come out, and lo and behold, what did we see? We saw this black line that went right across the sky. It went for about 40 clicks, 25 miles. And then we saw, I mean, it was like something toward the ionosphere. You could see blue sky on one side of this thing, blue sky on the other side of this thing, and you could actually see the stars in space in the middle where this thing was sliced. Anyway, they had a jet flying in there at hypersonic speed, because when you see a plane flying at a different angle, it looks like it's moving in slow motion. This thing was flying at supersonic speed. I mean, it was popping this white material, and it sealed the tear as it flew by. This went on, and we looked at that, and we looked at it and said, "What blazes did they do here?" And because Arizona seemed to be the place where they were doing a lot of this stuff because of the way they could manipulate the weather down there because of the heat. So again, when we're looking at this, and this weaponry can literally rip, and it does rip, it rips the atmosphere and the ionosphere every time they fire this thing.
Interestingly, I have heard that HAARP is operated somehow or affiliated with the University of Arizona, one of its departments. Do you know anything about that?
It may be. I mean, I wouldn't doubt it. I think it would be more a military operation. They do use universities to, to conduct whatever experiments they're going to conduct. So, or to operate these things so they can get readings and whatnot. And there's a guy up here in Alberta that's running around thinking we should dump more sulfur in the air to offset global climate and pollution. I mean, the guy is a goof. I'm a complete idiot, a blithering idiot. But basically, he's a front man so that they can use them as a distraction while they're doing something, because that's what usually goes on. I mean, the whole thing with Obama not having a birth certificate, people are still 6 years, 7 years later concerned about this man not having a birth certificate, not realizing, well, you're focused on his birth certificate, he screwed the country. So, I mean, you've got that going on, and this is, again, another smoke and mirror thing. Okay, here we go. So, again, this is something that we need to be present in the here and now, with the issues that are at hand, and not allowing ourselves to these petty distractions that go on. We have got such a high level of damage occurring in the ionosphere, such high level of damage that's occurring in the farmlands, such high level of damage that's occurring in the air we're breathing. The water is going to be another big thing. I mean, Nestle's is stealing water from all over the country. All over the planet. When they talk about global warming, and then they show you this little area where used to be a body of water, now it's all dried up. That's because Nestle's and companies like Nestle's have gone there and stolen the water out of those areas. Right now in the Great Lakes, we have our water supply has gone down substantially. And as a result, that's because Nestle's has been draining the Great Lakes to sell bottled water.
Yes, I have read a few articles on that. The CEO of Nestle is actually spearheading a lobby group to try to privatize a lot of public water systems so that they can do that. Uh, Speaking of water, what are your thoughts on fluoride?
Well, my thoughts on fluoride?
Yes.
Don't use it. Real simple concept there.
Yeah.
The only two waters I advocate are either distilled water or reverse osmosis. With all the components that we're dealing with today, nanoparticles, from the food supply, nanoparticles in your organics, irradiated food supplies, chemtrails coming down from the sky, smart meter pulses that are pulsing us, breaking down our myelin sheet and draining our ATP levels out of our cells. You need this type of water to flush out and clean out the debris and the death that's going on inside. I always tell people that plants use distilled water. They don't use spring water. They don't use any. They use distilled water, and then the plants themselves get fed in the root structure with bacteria or fungi that convert the nutrients into something that the roots can absorb. So when people say, well, we should be doing this, we should be doing that, I always tell people what you should be doing is cleaning your insides as best you can and keeping them as clean as possible.
You spoke earlier about these compounds that's in everything that we consume. Causing accelerated aging, breaking down some of the systems in the body. Is the Alzheimer's epidemic that we're seeing now a symptom of the poisons that people are consuming?
Alzheimer's is a condition of the soy they've been consuming in conjunction with aspartame, in conjunction with the canola, in conjunction with some of the monosodium glutamates that they were using in the past. When you combine these chemicals and these components together, they actually again cause the synapses of the brain to overfire, to burn out, causing a lot of free radical damage in the brain. So yeah, this is part and part. And now we got on top of that, nano silver in the food, nano aluminum coming down on us from the sky. You got barium coming down on us. This has got to go somewhere. Women having problems with breast cancers and cervical cancers and ovarian cancers because of the levels of estrogens they have in their system, they can be exposed to something called metalloestrogens, which act like an estrogen, bind to the receptor sites, and then mutate the cells in the area or the region of the reproductive system, causing these cancers to occur. So we have a lot of different things going on that's attacking us from several different fronts.
What part does iodine play in helping the body to get rid of harmful things, and also just as far as regulating the body? Does it have any cancer-fighting benefits? Does it have any other health benefits outside of what's normally said by the FDA, who only recommends 150 micrograms a day consumption?
Why would anybody listen to the FDA? They haven't fixed nothing in any time. All the FDA has done has undermined the North American health. They're undermining the European health. They call them the European Food and Safety Authority over there. All they've ever done is kill people. So why would anybody seriously consider them of any credibility whatsoever? Is beyond me. If you go on my webpage and look at my iodine, you can see all it can do. One, it renews your glands. It regulates the estrogens and the conversion from estradiol to estriol. It regulates the thyroid. It regulates the heart. It boosts the immune system. It flushes aluminum out of the body. It flushes mercury out of the body. It will kill syphilis of the spine, syphilis of the brain. It can kill pneumonia. It can kill tuberculosis. It's a fortifier of the body. It helps in the intelligent area as well, keeping you highly intelligent. Your intelligence quotient is maintained at a high level. So this is just some of the things that I'm telling you. The FDA wouldn't know how to tie their shoe with Velcro. Seriously, it's and anybody that would seriously listen to the FDA is either as dumb as a bag of rocks, and I'm being straight out, or is completely ignorant of what's really going on in the world today.
Does FDA operate? At the whim of the food companies, the pharmaceutical companies? Do they influence their decisions and their publications?
I don't even believe the FDA is even part of the branch of the United States government, to be honest with you. I never seen them to be a part of the branch of the United States government. They are a regulating body of their own. I don't know how many times Congress and the Senate has told the FDA to back off on specific things that they were doing. and the FDA just flat out ignored them.
Mm-hmm.
So again, they're not controlled by the federal government, that's for sure, or the U.S. government. Whoever's controlling them is from outside influence of the United States. The FDA, in my humble opinion, is being used to induce biological pathogens to the North American continent. They're being used as a means of waging war against their own people. For them to acknowledge and to accept aspartame and to say it's okay to use aspartame, for them to allow us to become Codex compliance when Codex compliance requires that our food to be completely irradiated, for our cows to be loaded with hormones, for our mineral content to have high levels of fluoride in it. Something is wrong with that picture, and this is what they're inducing. You don't have any protection. You haven't had any real protection in the United States since 1986. You had it up under on what was called the Delaney Act. Under the Delaney Act up until 1986, when he retired, you could not sell a food in the United States that could cause cancer. They had to wash it. They had to prepare the foods in such a way that if there was any cancer component, any pesticides that were being used, had to be completely removed from the food. They're now again reinitiating pesticides they had banned 30 years ago back into the food supply, which again is accelerating the aging process, which is accelerating the debilitation and dysfunction of people through cancers and other abnormalities with brain and other parts of the body and organ failure. So again, this is going on. This is the reality of what we're dealing with today. We're not in Kansas anymore.
Do you feel like any branch of the government is working to the benefit of the people, or let me rephrase that better? Is there any government agency with oversight capabilities that's looking out for us as far as our health?
When you see government agencies attacking the Amish, the Mennonite, the Hutterites, people that have been completely autonomous, when you see the government's attacking people who have farm shares where you can buy a cow and let a farmer take care of it so you can access the milk and meat products. When you see the government going in and attacking people because they won't vaccinate their children, I'm very hard pressed to believe that we have anything in government at all doing anything on behalf of anybody other than the drug industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the medical fields. I mean, you can only have test subjects if you break them down and debilitate them, which forces them to go to the medical institutions, which can then conduct their experiments with their drugs and vaccines and whatnot, which are again designed to genetically alter the human being. So again, do I think there's any safety or any institution in government after, again, what I've just told you? I would be very hard pressed. Why does somebody who wants to grow food without having spraying the food needs to have a certification by the USDA, which has been undermining the food safety for over 100 years? Why does anybody need to have special privileges to grow stuff without having to use chemicals that are being sold by the agribusiness? See, something is wrong there. So, I mean, if I want to go out and grow something and I want to put it to market, I got to go through a farming board or marketing board. That to me is crazy as well. So, I mean, the way I'm seeing the whole thing, it's all been through regulatory process, which is again forcing people to utilize the things that are there, which are actually self-destructive. So where's the safety?
I get you. Are any of the vaccines safe?
No. No. Unequivocally, no. I mean, there's no way you can pump mercury, aluminum, aborted babies, monkey genes, chicken parts, cow parts, formaldehyde, phosphorus, polysorbates 60 and 80, without having some kind of genetic damage on some level on a child when you pump these materials in the system. So are they safe? No. There has actually absolutely no scientific documentation on the planet that can validate the use of vaccines. If you wanted to see a good documentary, go watch Vaccine: The Hidden Truth. This was a documentary done in Australia back in the 1980s using the studies done in the United States, and they show you without a doubt that every time you bring in a vaccine program, the pathogenic outbreaks increase exponentially.
And as far as the medicines people are taking, once they get a medical condition or an illness that are doctor prescribed and they go to the pharmacist to get it, I'm assuming that's going to be some good, some bad. I wouldn't,
Why would you assume that?
because some medicines seem to have positive effects on people.
None of them do.
None of them?
None of them. They all have 30 side effects. They all have polymerized material in them, which gets inside the system that bind to your, again, to your genetic code. That can actually trigger the opposite effect. They don't have any. There's only one drug that I've seen in the last 50 years that I would consider using. Well, actually, there's a couple, but only the one main one would be an aspirin. That's probably the safest drug you could ever use out there to negate any possible side effect. You combine it with either magnesium or baking soda to neutralize any negative impact it could have. It's one of the least mildest thing. It kills 8 different types of cancers. But what you're buying today with these enteric-coated aspirins is you're buying something with aluminum in it, buying something with yellowing agents in it. If you're looking at any drugs and you actually see the components of these drugs, you will be hard-pressed not to get at least 30 side effects out of each drug.
Are there natural cures for everything?
As far as I know, I may not know how to apply everything to do these things, but as far as from what I've seen in my years of dealing with people and experiences, there's a lot of things that do work, and a lot of things have reversed or healed people from conditions that were considered by the medical field impossible to treat.
Some of the most prescribed medications in the United States today are for anxiety and high blood pressure.
Okay.
How are those drugs affecting people in negative ways when they take?
They addict them to them.
I see.
The benzos are highly addictive. When people get on benzos, it can take them years to get off the influence of the drugs. High pressure medication is an unnecessary medication. The reason why you're having high levels of blood pressure issues is because of the grains and the sugars you're eating and the soy, which again is disrupting the bodily functions to regulate itself properly. If the kidneys are congested and they need to elevate the blood pressure to force the blood through to filter it out, that may occur for a short period of time, then the blood pressure usually regulates itself. The simplest way to maintain blood pressure is increase your potassium, your sodium, and your magnesium. And you'd be surprised how that can stabilize and eliminate all grain products, all processed sugar products, and your blood pressure will be fine.
What's the difference between processed sugar and non-processed sugar?
What do you mean by non-processed?
Is any sugar non-processed?
All sugar.
Are there good sugars that you can buy?
No.
Okay.
It's all garbage. If you're going to buy sugar, the only sugars you should be using are things like maple syrup, unpasteurized honey. If you need to go with a sweetener, something like stevia, I mean a real stevia and a real xylitol that hasn't been compromised or counterfeited. But I mean, sugars you get from fruit you can use in an extract. Do not use molasses. All molasses is just dirty sugar that when they get done processing the cane, what you got left over is the slur. And they did just like everything else, the leftovers, instead of dumping it because it was costing them too much money, they decided to turn it into a health food. And it's nothing, there's really nothing healthy about it.
The reason I was asking is because there's been a really hot topic about high fructose corn syrup versus cane sugar. But cane sugar is also processed too. Is that right?
Cane sugar, okay, by comparison, cane sugar might be like smoking marijuana. Okay, high fructose corn syrup is like taking ecstasy. So, I mean, you have different levels of damage. The high fructose corn syrup does far more damage than the cane sugar, but they both will break you down. They can both cause diabetic reactions. They can both cause cellular dysfunction. They can both cause mineral deficiencies. So again, there's really no need to use either one. Unless you're going to make alcohol out of cane sugar, I don't see any need for it.
And when you say alcohol, are you talking about a topical antiseptic?
No, I'm talking something you can drink.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking something you can drink, like vodka, or something like that. Yeah, I mean, or like a rum type of material. I mean, in that regard, in that way, it's actually medicinal for you. But if you're eating it the other way, no, it's not a good idea.
I see. And there's also been talk about wheat. Apparently, wheat that we consume today is not the wheat that we used to consume.
Eliminate all grains.
Eliminate them all.
Oh, there is no safe grain. If you want to find that information, go on my website on the script of the show. Look at the December 2012 script and look up under the mycotoxin report there. Again, this is another one of these government reports. There's not a grain fit in the United States or Canada that should be consumed. And even these grain-like components like quinoa and amaranth and all, leave them alone. They're garbage. Chances are they've come in from other countries. They've been irradiated anyway, and they have absolutely no value whatsoever. Again, you have to understand that this is, again, another means and ends to create a debilitation, giving you a false sense of security, false sense of whatever, comfort that, I can eat this, but I can't eat that. Okay, I'll eat this. You're still compromising your system. Leave them alone. Seriously. If you've got genetic material in your body, the cellulose and these other grain-like materials you're eating will actually feed the polymers and the nanoparticles in your system, whether it be buckwheat or quinoa or any of these. Leave them alone. Seriously, they're not worth it.
Oats too?
Oats, yeah, oats is a grain. Leave it alone.
All of them. Just cut them out.
There is nothing. Go read the article.
Okay.
I'll tell you, go read the article, and then you make your own judgment on it. If you feel you can continue to eat the grains, knock yourself out. Me, myself, I won't touch them.
What's the best diet?
The omnivore diet. Allows you to eat everything. Fat, carbohydrates, protein, antioxidants, minerals. When you're talking about these other idiotic diets, the paleo diet where you're eating all raw food, it has some merit and some benefit. But if you're going to be eating raw meat, I think you got to have a rock in your head. With the microbes in the blood and the parasites in the meat that you're eating. And some say, well, it's organic. Organic doesn't mean it's safe. If a cow is eating grasses in the field and gets a parasite in the meat or in the protein, you're going to get it if you eat it raw. This is why you cook your meat. If you're going to be eating a so-called vegan diet, again, that's actually one of the worst diets you can be on because of the way it's the law of diminishing returns. The more you eat it, the more you eat of it, the more it takes out of your body between the phytates and the fibers. For a short interim, a vegan diet can have some benefit because of the way it cleanses the body, but to stay on it would be complete insanity. Vegetarian diets that consume eggs and dairy products like cheese and plain yogurts or kefir is more balanced, and that makes more sense. If you don't want to eat red meat, that's fine. If you want to eat chicken or if you want to eat fish on that diet, or what they call a vegetarian diet, that's more an omnivore diet. And that's perfectly okay too. I don't see a problem with that. But when you're getting caught up on this whole vegan thing, that's beyond belief stupid. For a long period of time, it's just stupidity. But for a short interim, again, for cleansing, for fasting, or to flush out toxins, or to even help in healing, not a problem.
We discussed before the program a couple of topics just to get acquainted. And you mentioned that some of the cancer-fighting foods, such as broccoli cauliflower, can actually work for or against the purpose intended when they're being ingested. Could you explain to the audience how that works?
We're talking about eating cruciferous vegetables. They're goitrogenic. So if you're eating these foods with soy, for instance, and other goitrogenic foods that could cause a problem on the thyroid, you balance out one equation, but you create an imbalance in another. So where maybe you're trying to protect yourself from a breast cancer, you might actually cause a thyroid cancer. So again, this is not necessarily the way to go. And again, this is a misdirect, because if you really had an issue going on with the breast, let's say you're a female, or the prostate if you're a male, then it's the iodine you're actually looking for to fix this issue, not these cruciferous vegetables. If you want to eat them once a week or something to that effect, there's not going to be a real problem with that unless you are already compromised in the thyroid. Then you want to leave them alone. Until your thyroid has been repaired, regenerated, or restored, you do not want to eat high goitrogenic type foods. And when they start, some of these gurus will tell you, well, you can, ferment phytates out. It can take up to 2 years to ferment some of these phytates. So again, a lot of this is just a lot of misdirect, misinformation that's going on in the system. Again, if you're already compromised in your digestive system, your pancreas, your esophagus, or thyroid, then you have to act accordingly. in order to repair these parts of your body.
Is fermented soy safe?
No, that's another misdirect and a lot of baloney there too. There is no part of soy on any level that is safe to consume. First and foremost, the fermentation process with soy is done in aluminum. Number one, it's not done long enough. Number two, it's only done for 2 or 3 months, which actually increases the phytate content, increases the estrogen levels, and increases the goitrogenic levels of this food. There is no safe form of soy. If you really want to look at soy, let's go look at the FDA poison plant database, because that's where you're going to find it. I've got 2 links on my webpage. They have fed vegetable oil, which is soy-based, to cows, which cause the cows have 2 stomachs, cause both stomachs to hemorrhage. They have known soy has been a poison since 1904. Okay, they were very reluctant. We're even using byproducts of soy to make wrapping for the food supply in the 1950s. So, in my humble opinion, if you feel the need to eat soy, knock yourself out. But even the Ministry of Israel, the Ministry of Health in Israel, made a proclamation: nobody under the age of 18 should be eating soy. The only people that should be eating soy are those people who cannot eat anything else. In other words, if there's nothing left other than soy for you to use, then by all means eat it if that's what's going to keep you alive. But in general, they're telling you to stay away from it. There's no value to it. They're even telling people who've got developing teenagers and kids not to feed it to anybody under the age of 18. And this, again, has been out there for quite some time. So again, this is a lot of baloney out there on this whole soy thing.
What about beans?
Same thing. It's got high levels of phytates. Again, you want to eat them once a week or something to that effect, not a problem for a cleansing effect. But to maintain the diet on beans, again, you'd have to have a rock in your head.
And eggs. Is there a safe egg that you can buy at the supermarket?
I don't buy my eggs at the supermarket. I mean, if that's all you can get, that's what I would tell you to use. The only thing I would probably tell you to do is augment the egg with either a bay leaf powder or rosemary powder or some other antioxidant to help again stabilize it. I mean, eggs should be actually a reddish orangey color, not yellow and white. So again, support the local farmer. I keep telling everybody to do this. Go to the farms, buy your stuff from the farm, buy the eggs from a market that's coming from a farm. The eggs in the grocery store, again, are probably factory farmed, probably loaded with antibiotics and all kinds of crap. But I mean, that's all you've got. It would be better than far better than eating any soy you're going to eat, and far safer than some other components that you're getting in some other parts of the grocery store.
I can testify that if you know a farmer that you can get eggs from, you can actually taste the difference in the quality of that product and what you'll buy at the grocery store. Even if you buy that free range labeled product, there is a huge difference in the quality of the product buying it from a local farmer. Let me ask you about vitamin supplements. How can people be sure that the vitamins they're buying are good for them?
Read the label.
Okay.
It boils right down to you got to read the label. I mean, I have to read the labels. I mean, the supplements I was buying years ago, I have to read the label today because they have compromised them. They've added polymers to them. They've added aluminum lake number 2 to them, which is a form of aluminum. They've added all kinds of coloring agents that can trigger, yellow number 5, and yellow 6, which can contribute to asthma attack. So, you have to read the label. There is no ifs, ands, or but about it. I mean, and then you have to know what you're reading and interpret what you're reading. Because, like I said, they put some of these things inside the vitamins so they can neutralize or negate the effect of the vitamin. I'll give you an example. They came up with a ubiquinol product years ago that was supposed to be more absorbable than the ubiquinine or CQ10, which is a more advanced absorption of the CQ10 product. Then what did they do is they combined it with canola oil, which scars the thyroid. So when I looked at that, I said, now how stupid can you be? But this is what they did. And so again, you have to realize that this is, again, a form of compromising that vitamin or that supplement so that you don't get the full benefit out of it.
What kind of cooking oil would you recommend people use?
Butter.
Good old-fashioned butter.
Old-fashioned butter.
My grandmother used to make it. And I was just reading a vitamin label, actually, that I have, and there's filler in there, too. Rice flour,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that's not a good thing.
Today, I wouldn't say it is. I mean, years ago they would use rice flour as a means to stabilize components so they wouldn't oxidize or cause an interaction within the pill. But again, today a lot of your rice products are genetically engineered.
There's also a story about rice having a high mercury content now.
Okay, and not a surprise.
Yeah.
Not a surprise. It could be coming from the chemtrails of hitting the ground and the rice is absorbing it.
You're probably going to break my heart, but I got to ask you about seafood.
What about it?
Is it safe?
What define your parameter of safe?
Well, let's say you buy frozen seafood from the supermarket. It comes in a bag. It's cut into fillets already. It's either...
You have to marinate it, neutralize the mercury in it. You're going to have to neutralize the manganese in it. You're going to have to neutralize some of the industrial metals that these fish are absorbing in their fat.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe in using fish oils at all on any level. Actually, these omega-3 fish oils can actually increase the oxidation process in the system, causing periodization of the fat, which can actually induce heart failure. They have found anybody using these fish oil products after 4 years can actually increase heart failure by a factor of 4. They are all loaded with mercury. They are all loaded with arsenic. There's not one that isn't. What they've done is they've set a standard for how much mercury and arsenic can be in these products. And so if they don't reach that certain level, then they can say it's mercury and arsenic free. It's not something to use.
And should people avoid things that are labeled farm raised as far as fish goes? I know a lot of the fish comes from China, and they're breeding in these factory farms. I don't even know what they feed them.
They're feeding them soy.
Ah.
Feed them soy. They're pumping with antibiotics. I mean, they've had fish and fish farms in Canada and other parts of the United States have leaked out in areas and waterways and byways where the water was so polluted that normal fish would not live there, but these fish can thrive. So what's that telling you?
Well, you are what you eat, and if it ain't it, you're eating it too.
Yeah, exactly. So again, when we're talking food safety today, I don't think there's really anything you can eat anymore that doesn't have some margin of disruption that it can cause you. So the big key you have to learn how to do now is learn how to neutralize those components that could be problematic for the health. And that's what I promote all the time on the YouTube, that you've got to learn how to negate or neutralize the things that you are eating. I don't like leaving people with a fear factor thinking, or an anxiety overload because of the food not being safe. It isn't safe, okay? So you need to take an alternative approach to your food. And one of the things is to start growing it yourself, develop either a pot garden, a box garden, a aquaponic, hydroponic, vertical garden, whatever it takes for you to have that food safety that you feel the need to have anymore, because you cannot depend on the supermarkets. And if you want to start a revolution without having to fire one bullet, just quit buying grocery bought foods and start growing your own. And in that of itself will start a heavy duty revolution, because once that industry caves in and caves down, even the health food stuff, a lot of it is garbage. It's just pure nonsense. I went to look at buying turkeys one year, and they've had turkeys in the health food industry just as big and just as plump as the stuff that was sold in conventional markets. I worked with turkeys. A turkey should not be no more than 5 kilos or 12 pounds. Anything more than that has had some sort of inducement to make it grow, whether they're adding soy, hormones, antibiotics, whatever. So again, when you go into a health food store and you're buying a turkey that's a 20-pound bird, really? How did you get that to happen? So again, this is where you have to start thinking, well, maybe I should raise my own chickens. Maybe I should raise my own fish. You like seafood, go buy some fish and develop an aquaponic system. So as these fish breed and mate and develop, and then you're feeding them algae instead of the pollution in the ocean, then that fish you're going to eat out of your aquaponic system is going to be clean, full of protein. The fish oil now will have some value, some real value, and because you're going to cook with, you're going to eat it in the fish, and so you're going to have an overall healthier protein content. You're raising your own chickens. You're going to be feeding chickens the things they need to get the calcium and the minerals in their diet. So when you get an egg out of the chicken's eggshell is hard as a brick. That's a real healthy chicken. When you look at the bones of the chicken, you see an actual bone structure. So if you ever had to kill the chicken for food, you don't got this rubber-legged chicken, this plump overfed chicken. You got a chicken that's pink and with meat, lean, and it's going to give you a higher level of omega-3 in the chicken you're eating. And the eggs you get out of that chicken will be better and healthier. So we have options. You just got to start using the old gray matter and buying good seeds that are non-genetic. If they're hybrided, again, same species, tomato to tomato, I don't see a problem with that, unless there's been some sort of genetic manipulation with this. But if it's just through, splicing vines and attaching them to other vines and growing a different tomato or things of this nature, this I do not see a problem with. When you're looking at your food supply today, I've often said if you could isolate yourself from the atmosphere and grew your own food, you may find that after a couple of years, anything that we've been exposed to with metal overload, polymer overload, nano biofilm overload would be completely out of the system, because your body would have a better means of expediting this out of the body.
How do you feel about tobacco use?
Use it.
Use it?
Use it. Don't buy the tobacco, the normal tobacco. Make sure it's the same stuff that the natives would use for ceremonial tobacco, because tobacco can actually help the brain maintain its health. You never saw Indians and Native American Indians having Alzheimer's until they started eating the same crap that everybody else was eating. They've been put on reservations and they've been fed all kinds of poisons. But those that have used ceremonial tobacco in the past never had Alzheimer's. If they use cedar, sage, and sweetgrass, again, these are all nootropic type components for the brain. So I don't have a problem with using tobacco as long as you're not buying the stuff in the mainstream where it's got 4,000 pesticides. That's what people are getting addicted to, is this pesticide chemicals, which are overriding and overprogramming your cells and your brain. And again, another form of genetic manipulation, because the estrogen levels are going to get off kilter with this.
I'm glad you mentioned nootropics. That is a fascinating subject to me. I've just been experimenting with them for about 2 or 3 weeks consistently. And there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of research that people can look up on the internet about nootropics. And nootropics are basically brain fuel. Is that correct?
Brain food, brain fuel, brain support. I've got a page on my webpage. It's a nootropic page. It's 3 layers deep. So if you go in through each layer, you'll see all the nootropics that are out there. We did a video on how to make your own nootropics. What we used was pyricetum with DMAE and choline. There are more than one way of doing this. But again, that's what we showed. Showed you how to even figure out how much you're getting per capsule. So again, these are things that can be used. Again, by using the nootropics, you can see a different level of augmentation and stimulation in the brain. So again, it's and growth.
And these nootropics, do they actually stimulate the regrowth of brain cells?
Brain cells never really die. I mean, they can be burned out, I guess, if you poison yourself. But generally, what happens is they shrink. And what happens is the myelin levels of the brain can shrink, and as a result, the connections of the brain do not activate properly. So they can help increase neural connectivity. They can help rebuild the acetylcholine, depending what type of saturated fat you're using, or phospholipids that help in the regeneration of the myelin sheet around the cells. Yeah, they can do this. They can restore and reconnect the brain cells that have been lying dormant and not connected. Where pyricetum works, it works at the base of the neck where the right and left side can connect and communicate. So your creative side and your analytical side are in better communication with each other.
I've noticed since I started, I seem to have a lot less what you would call brain fog.
Okay, but you'll have even less brain fog if you leave the grains alone and leave the sugars alone, which will increase the brain efficacy. If you start using more fat, saturated fat, drinking cream straight up, 35% or higher, again, you'll start seeing better brain functionality as well. Fat, you need saturated fat to supply the energy for the brain. So.
And as far as milk goes, are we talking raw milk?
I'm talking unpasteurized milk. Raw milk is, again, you got to kind of be careful with that terminology, because sometimes they'll say in the health food store they're selling you a raw organic milk, but it's been pasteurized. When I talk about milk, I'm talking about the real deal. I'm talking about the stuff that can cure tuberculosis. That's unpasteurized milk. Um, that's what you should be drinking.
There has been a push to legalize the use of recreational marijuana. Um, is that a good idea?
Grow your own. Grow your own.
So it's just like the food then.
It's a herb. And it has restorative capacity. Okay, if you juice the herb or if you eat the herb, you can see those people who are addicted to some of these benzos and other drugs may find that they can break the addiction of these herbs just by consuming the product and through either juicing or teas or just by consumption in a salad. Now, when you smoke it, it changes or alters the effect of the THC content, but when it's taken in a quote unquote raw state or a natural state, it has a lot of health benefits. Again, it's all how it's applied. So again, the whole thing of legalizing marijuana, I would just be telling you to start growing your own, seriously, and use it for medicinal purposes.
Is it time to end the war on drugs?
I'm sorry?
Do you feel like it's time to end the war on drugs?
There's never been a war on drugs. There's been a war against humanity using drugs. You know, when you sit there and think about the law enforcements that are going on and how much drugs are getting through the United States and Canada and how many people are addicted to street drugs or pharmaceutical drugs, there's never been a war on drugs. How I've always observed that and how I've analyzed is the law enforcement have actually protected the drug industry, and those that were in the way or in the territory, those were the ones that were eliminated or arrested, while the drug flow of traffic has been proliferating without any impediment. I mean, there's big money with illegal. The reason why they've never legalized it is because they would lose a ton of money on it. So it was a war on drugs, really? If there's going to be a war on drugs, there should be a war against pharmaceutical drugs that are being prescribed in the medical industry. That's the real problem we're having.
What's the dangers with SSRIs? These drugs are being prescribed for psychological conditions, depression. Um, what's the problem that those are causing among people, especially young people, and what's the natural alternative to that?
Well, the reason why they're dangerous is because they're not supplying the brain what they really need. You got a deficiency of B3, deficiency of zinc, deficiency of B1 going on there, and that's usually a colon issue because the bacteria in the colon is not able to convert the folic acid to B12, B3, B1 that the brain requires. So if it's not getting what it needs, and then you give them these drugs that aren't really doing anything for them other than creating an addictive state or a state of further debilitation, then there's not going to be any benefit there. You're never going to see it get fixed. Let's just put it this way. You know, when we're talking, you know, the use of these things, again, it boils down to, like I said, a folic acid deficiency, a B12, and where do you convert that? In the colon. B3 deficiency, B1, again, where do you convert that? Again, in the colon. So the first thing I give people is I would tell people to get on is basically a high fermented food diet to get the like kefir or yogurt that would have high levels of probiotics and with fat, pure, full fatted fermented dairy products. The cheese. Again, this increases the bacteria culture in the colon. Once you get that going, again, you might start seeing the better uptake of these B vitamins. I show people how to make your B vitamins more absorbable by opening them up and putting them in a yogurt, letting them sit on the counter overnight so that the yogurt can ferment this down and allow the B complex to be absorbed.
How do you feel about corporate influence on government? Is there too much of it? Is it something that we can work around?
The United States of America is called corporate America. So what's that telling you? You don't have a government, you have a corporation running the country. And that's the problem with the United States right now. We've got the same problem in Canada. We don't have a government running the country. We have a corporate government running the country. So that's the issue. So is there a distinction between the two? No, not anymore. There hasn't been for quite some time. When George Bush Jr. said that the Constitution was nothing but a damn piece of paper, okay, that ended the autonomy that the United States had. He basically put it under a corporate license. So this is why your rights are being taken away from you so drastically, and why the courts are not doing their jobs anymore, because again, we're under a whole different dichotomy over there. And so you got a corporate America. So you have no distinction between government and corporation. That's an illusion.
And now we have a president from the opposite side of the spectrum, and nothing really has changed as far as...
Because he's all he is the executive head of corporate America. He gets told what to do by the banks who control the country and by the corporates that control the country. All he is just a face. So when something goes wrong, everyone starts blaming Mr. Obama. Mr. Obama, Obama's an arsehole. Obama's this, Obama, because that's what you see. That's what's being presented. If you looked at Ford Motor or General Motors and you actually saw them violating the environment and violating something, you'd go after General Motors or Ford. Hey, what are you doing over there? Blah, blah, blah. But this way, you've been distracted with this corporate head or this corporate puppet to take the flak when things go wrong.
It sounds very much like plutocracy.
Okay.
It's a term it's rule of the elite, basically.
Yeah, again, and that's what's going on. Basically, as long as Americans and Canadians and Europeans and other other parts of the world are completely caught up in their comfort zone and their distractions, these guys will continue to undermine the very fabric of the way of life that's in this country. And as long as the corporations and the companies are exiting out of the country without any restraint, we can go to other countries because they're developing countries and they can make more money and pay less on labor. It should be a strong indication that the laborers in the United States and Canada aren't worth anything, and they're not. They've never been respected and never will be. So until you get to that level where, hey, maybe we need to make the changes within ourselves, start your own autonomy, start your own business, start your own bartering system, and again, this is how you undermine these corporations.
If I may ask you, what's your views on organized religion?
My views on organized religion?
Yes.
I don't believe in any of them. I think they're all part of the scenario today to induce more control over people. They're not leading you to God in any way, shape, or form. In fact, they're taking you further away from God with this social engineering that they're putting in religion today. When the churches are not speaking out against the criminal activity of corporations or governments that are creating people to lose their moral or ethical fiber, something's wrong. I don't believe in Islam. I don't believe in Judaism. I don't believe in the Christianity that we are seeing today. I don't believe in Catholicism. I don't believe in the native beliefs, or do I believe in any other beliefs, because of the fact that they have all been infiltrated by either Jesuits or Zionists and created a whole new age or old Babylonian concepts that they've diluted and convoluted in these belief systems. So that's what I see. That's why I don't believe in any of them.
Tony, we're running out of time on this interview. I know you have a radio show coming up next, and I'm going to link that in the thread in which I post the link to this show. I want to thank all the listeners. I want to extend special thanks to you for coming on as a guest. I just invited you this morning, and it's been my privilege to talk to you. It's been very interesting. Hopefully we can talk again sometime.
Sounds good. Listen, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. And thanks for the plug. And then when you get a chance, send me the link to your blog spot as well, so I can put it on my webpage and let people go to your site as well.
I will. We have a YouTube channel, and I'll be happy to send that to you.
All right. Sounds good. All right.
Thank you for listening to LOP Radio. Good night.